All right, let's start finding our seats. Let's start finding our seats. Regents, if you can gather your fellow regents into their chairs so we can get started. All right, I'm going to call us to order. I think I'm counting 4 plus me is 5, and Alicia's on 2, which is 6. And as always, Elaine is up and ready to go. So let's start. We're going to start today's meeting just to look at the agenda. We're going to finish our conversation on the board's unified state appropriations request. Then we will enter into the predetermined agenda for Thursday with our reports, hearing from the TEA, and then we have FAFSA, conflict of interest, and the one and only Chad Bristow coming up, and then we'll head into executive session. So that's what we got on tap for today. Let's jump back in to the board's unified state appropriations request. And I just want to tell this board and the CEOs how much I appreciate how we were able to move through that conversation yesterday. I just woke up feeling really good about how it went. So I just want to say thank you. Everybody was good, spoke up, pressed up against each other, or pushed back against each other when needed to be. And I think it created a good product and has us on good footing for today. So I'm going to pass it to Elaine. Elaine, why don't you bring us up to speed and covering what we did yesterday?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would make an announcement. There has been a water line break in the building. So there is no running water in the restrooms and in our kitchen. So just a warning for those of us who are here in the Curtis building this morning.
Does that mean we might have a coffee shortage at some point?
I'm not sure if we had a deferred. Can you make it, Steve, so I can share my screen? I think that would be beneficial. And I need to join the Zoom meeting. So Regents, Blake is handing you a sort of a status update on where we are for the decisions that you've made so far. And Misty, if you could send me the Zoom link. I'm not. I'll need the Zoom link. But when we get that up and running, I can share the screen so everyone sees what the Regents are looking at. But just as a recap, you have made some tentative recommendations yesterday, mostly focused on the system and the all university items. I would highlight the $397,500 item. That's at the very top of page 93. This is a regional university initiative for small business development centers. It's a 3-year pilot that would be focused on the regional universities, small business development centers in support of those items. So I would just highlight that. Thank you, Misty.
John Tisa has a comment.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tisa. President Mason.
Thank you. We are willing to withdraw that to defer it for another year to sharpen up the plan and give some operational dollars back to the system.
All right. Thank you. We'll mark that down.
Yes, 397,500 withdrawn. All right. Then I think, Mr. Chairman, at this stage, the natural next segue would be to talk about the university-specific projects.
Great.
And the first item is the KU Medical Center with the Cancer Research Facility.
Well, Elaine, what I was thinking, I know we got, it looks like the 3 regional presidents are all able to be here in person this morning, which thank you for pivoting to be able to do that. I think I see President Muma on. I'm assuming KU and K-State. I may just go to each of them. We asked them to take a look at everything and prioritize again, just to see if they had any changes to their requests. Is it okay if we just bounce to each of them, see if they have any changes versus going through each project? Are you comfortable with that, Elaine?
Oh, yes.
All right, well, we'll start with people in person. President Mason just made an adjustment. Anything else, President Mason from Fort Hays?
Yes, so our professional and continuing ed workforce development initiative, we've asked for an investment of $1.5 million over 3 years. We could help out by going down to $750,000 over 5 years. Once we prove the concept and have the income to be self-supporting, so if that happens before the 5 years, we would be able to give that money back should we get it down the road. But that would be an adjustment that we can make. And also the Docking Institute research on behalf of the regional universities for $50,000 is tied to the Small Business Development Initiative that we just deferred. So that important work could also be deferred.
Thank you. You got that, Elaine? Do you track with that, Elaine?
President Mason, I'm catching up. So if you could restate that real simply for me in dollar terms.
The professional workforce development, $750,000. So make it by 50%, but take it from a 3-year initiative to a 5-year initiative.
All right.
And then the Docking Institute research, which is at the end of ours on behalf of the regional universities. You can defer that and zero it out for this next fiscal year.
All right. Got it.
Thank you, President Mason. All right. Next to you, I think, is President Hush. Any
Good morning,
changes on
everyone.
State? I know you guys had already made one yesterday, so.
Yes, aside from that one, the remaining 3 are out-of-pocket costs for action taken, obviously the first one, and then virtually via the lower student enrollment on campus. The other 2 deal with not being able to make payments on internal loans, et cetera. So we will hold firm for those 3.
Okay. Thank you, President Hush. President Ship.
Hi, good morning. Would keep the 2 that we have listed unchanged. One, the American Center for Reading is the facility portion of the programming dollars that we received last year. So this is really a next phase for us. So we view that as really important, especially with our goal this year focused on the science of reading. The other one is a matching request that we have that will be both federal and state dollars to upgrade our science labs, which are decades behind where we need to be. So I'd really hate to hold any of that off.
Okay. All right. And when 3 of you, as you've thought about the changes we made to the regional ask, they're under their system-wide options. Are you guys comfortable with what we did yesterday on that?
Yes, John, they're saying yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, for sure. And Mr. Chair, I also want to make sure I forgot to say this, but it shows for Pitt State the KBI facility, and I just want to make clear to everybody here that KBI is going to take that forward, and we are in a sidecar to them on this project, but we're very supportive and believe this is a great project, but that will come forward through the KBI.
Okay, thank you.
We
President.
appreciate you letting us know that, though, and then that's and our endorsements in place then at that point. So thank you.
All right, I know we got President Muma on. Wichita State only has one item on here, I think, but President Muma, any thoughts for you overnight?
Yeah, just a further explanation of what we're required. We have that one request for $10 million. This is to really accelerate our applied learning program that we have with business and industry. All of our students are required to have applied learning experience. We're trying to get it where most students have a paid applied learning experience. Using our existing resources and our history in this, we have about 8,000 students connect with business and industry partners on our campus, and they're earning about $28 million. We'd like to increase that. We see this as not only an opportunity to support business and industry, but help as a retention tool. Many of our students need additional resources, and so this not only helps them build their resume, but and their skills, but it also helps them. So $10 million would allow us to increase this by about 33%, given our history, what we know, and what we'll possibly be able to do. We could cut that in half. That'll decrease it to about 1,400 students, but that's what we could offer. So it's going from 10 to 5, if that is helpful.
Yep, thank you. Any questions for President Muma on that? Okay, thank you, Rick, for getting on here virtually. Chancellor Gerard, KU. Got to hit the unmute button.
Is that working?
Yep, you got it.
There we go. I think the only thing we have on here is the Cancer Center building, which is really a request coming from some foundations in Kansas City who are willing to put up $75 million if the state will match it. And again, we believe we've got some champions in the legislature to carry the water on this one. But I believe that's the only individual ask that we have here.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know how the other regions feel about this, or Chancellor. You know, to me, as we're looking at our overall ask, I think this is a kind of different project and specific, still something we need to put forward in our overall data. But as far as we're tallying, I'd take that 75 million over to the side, just mentally for us inside of this too. I don't know how everybody else is thinking about that.
There are nods around the table, John.
Okay.
Up front. I mean, the Regents.
Yeah, that's great. Great momentum there. You guys got that $100 million gift last year from, was it Sunderland Foundation? Is that right?
Sunderland Foundation, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great momentum going on there. Okay. Is there
John wants to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make a point on the issue of identifying that 75 million as one time. I think it's important that when we transfer and when we communicate with the legislature about our budget request, that we make very clear those items which are one time versus the ones that are recurring. And in fact, you know, I don't want to be micromanaging how we draft the documents, but I would suggest that we list all those things that are recurring separately, and then have a bucket of things at the end that are one time. I think it's important that everybody know that if our ask is $300 million, well, 120 of it million or whatever it is one-time money. It's a lot easier to justify and to sell if it's done that way. Just a thought.
I just want to echo that. I appreciate that comment, Regent Winter. I think that'd be very helpful.
And I want to add that adding one-to-one private match definitely makes a difference too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think this, as Chancellor Droud was saying, this spurred from some foundations coming late last legislative session, and it was just too late to enter it into the conversation. But it's good. It's been out there. They're committed to it still now, several months later. So I think it's good. Okay. Is there a representative from K-State? I don't know if Marshall or President Linton Is there anybody available?
Marshall's here. He's coming up.
All right, great. Thank you.
I know President Linton would like to do this, but obviously couldn't be here this morning. So let me kind of walk you through a few of these. First one is MBAF and the BRI in particular. If you, as you know, we have the BRI facility, which is a BSL 3 level, which is a company beside MBAF. That project, if you go back when it started, was left with a large debt left on it. And so one of the things we've been trying to do is work our way down that debt. Right now, what it means is we end up expending somewhere around $2.2 million per year in debt service. And if you go back to the original conversations, which none of us were around for, it was very clear that there was conversations that at a future point, the legislature would have come back and help us with that to get that off, because that's 2.2 million that could be used for research and innovation. So what this would do is ask the legislature through the Board of Regents to allow us to have 2.2 million to again move that down over a 10-year period to bring that debt down. That again would free up dollars to go into research and innovation. So again, it's something that we feel very strongly about that needs to be done. There have been conversations held, as Blake knows, to encourage us to go for this. So we think it's an opportunity there. So that's the BRI paying off the debt for that. The Ag Innovation Project, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I want to make clear that is one time.
That is
correct.
2.2 over a period of up to 10 years, whatever it takes to get it out.
Okay.
I could add to it.
All I'm interested in is the appropriation.
Yeah.
That's a $2.2 million one-time appropriation, correct? Or is it?
No, it would be, that would be recurring over a 10-year period. Yes, sir.
I think there was discussion to do it one time, but the note that was so low interest that it was more advantageous to do it this way.
We've been advised to go this direction rather than the one time actually on this one. So that's why we're headed that direction.
Thank you.
The Ag Innovation Initiative is something I think all of you are aware of that President Linton has really pushed hard on, and it's been great for our university. It's a $208 million initiative. Right now, we're within 66 million of hitting that goal. And so we're pushing hard to the end so that everyone has a level ground on this. The state, through various means, has put in 50 million total. So we have raised somewhere around 84 million private at this point. So we're continuing to do that. One thing we can do with this particular one, because we're going to have to raise money beyond the 25 million, is we could make this obviously a one-to-one match as well, very easily. So if you want to put that as a piece in there, that would certainly be fine with us. But it is one-time money. One time, and it will enable us to get closer to the goal to finish this out. We are working in particular, you might be interested with the milling industry and also the livestock industry as being two big partners that are really working hard to help us reach that goal. So we feel really good about that. With the state's help, we can get over the hump and move forward. The Animal Diagnostic Lab, I don't know how many of you know a lot of background about this, but in every state you have animal diagnostic labs. Sometimes they're run by the university, like at Kansas State with our vet school. Some places are by the Department of Agriculture, or sometimes a hybrid between the two. What animal diagnostic labs do is when farmers, ranchers, or homeowners for that matter, have an animal that is sick or they don't know what's going on with it, they can bring it in for diagnostics. So Kansas being a big animal state, as you know, animal industry, it is really important we have a really top shelf animal diagnostic lab. It is run by our vet school. Currently, that facility, to put it mildly, is in less than adequate form. It is something we're going to have to work with state leaders on in the future. What this would do is give us planning money to begin that process. It's going to be a long-term project. States like Iowa State, for instance, just to give you scale, their project just recently was at a $90 million project. Again, it's a state resource that is housed by the university. So it's a very different kind of approach that we'll have to take on this down the road, but we do need to do some initial planning. So this is $250,000 one-time money to enable us to do that, to get that going so we can see what it's going to take to do it. So that would be that request. Water, University-wide Water Institute. I don't think there's anyone in Kansas that doesn't know this is an issue. I've traveled this state quite a bit along with the president. We hear about it everywhere we go. We have the opportunity, we believe, at Kansas State University, and certainly we would welcome other partners in the Board of Regents schools and others that want to join us in this to really do some incredible work in the water area. We have to do this. It is a top priority for the state of Kansas. In fact, if you go down this list, I could give you reasons that all of these are top priorities for the state of Kansas, but this is certainly one we've got to get really serious about. This would be a recurring request to enable us to stand up this institute. We have right now, to give you a sense of this, we recently did a survey on our campus. We have 75 faculty scattered across every college and school right now at Kansas State working on some aspect of water. It could be irrigation or it could be behavioral change. So in education and health and human sciences, agriculture, all over the place. So what we're doing is standing this up. Not only do we believe it'll be great for Kansas, we believe it'll be an institute nationally and internationally recognized, because drought is not an issue only in Kansas, but it is around the world. And we think we have the capacity with the state support to move forward. Again, recurring request there for us, again, based on stakeholder input, is something our stakeholders are really interested in. The next one is digital agriculture and data analytics. I think most of you know that the world of agriculture has changed tremendously. Well, once again, looking at our strengths and looking at our stakeholder input and the needs of the state, agriculture is obviously an enormous driver in this state economically, whether it be in the livestock industry or in wheat or agronomy, whatever it is, or milling science or whatever you want to go to. We have tremendous capacity to grow in this area. This would be one-time money to enable us to stand up again a institute that'll be across Penn University, if you will. You'll notice this is one time because we do know there are incredible grant opportunities beyond this, not only from the federal government, but also grant opportunities with public-private partnerships. So we know this one can get legs and go. This will bring in companies and organizations. If you've looked at our K-State Foundation, for instance, and the EDGE project that's going on there with an innovation campus, this is one that would certainly tie nicely into that. Again, it'd be one-time money. Again, a lot of interest from our agricultural partners on this one as well. The next area is rural education. If Kansas State does anything, it is that we cover the state, 105 counties. We know there are incredible issues in rural teacher shortages. We have a great Dean of Education, Debbie Mercer, who is doing some incredible work of certifying teachers locally and having them get credentialed in different ways. So we want to do some more innovation in that space. We think this is, again, a critical need for the state, something that we could do great work in. Our College of Arts and Sciences alongside of that has incredible capacity to deliver coursework. And I know Blake, you and I have talked about that one as well, and thinking about how to manage that in a different way so that we can get content to students who perhaps don't have it in their local schools today. And we think this is something that could be transformational. And if you think about that, it also helps your college going rate. When students are better prepared in high school, they've obviously got an opportunity then to go into higher education in different ways. So again, this would be a recurring, and it would enable us to drive in this rural education space in a way that perhaps we haven't in the past.
So I know we don't want to accidentally not be enthusiastic about the things we need to do around rural and around the state, but is there overlap with this from some of our other initiatives?
This is one that Blake and I have talked about. And so I'll go ahead, Cindy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go answer. I'll follow.
I'll answer this one. So what we were going to suggest on this one is the arts and sciences piece of this, and some conversation we've had with Blake could basically go fold up into, and Blake, you'll have to help me with this one, another initiative you have going that we think that might fold into. Is that correct?
Yeah, I could see our concurrent initiative housing some of this. I don't know if it wouldn't be 3 million,
yeah, right.
but it could, there could be opportunity there.
Could be opportunity on that one. So the 3 million could definitely be something we would look at, maybe routing a different way, which would free up 3 million. Carl, and then we do think the education side of this, so the College of Ed, is really a different kind of thing, and we probably would like to stick with that if we possibly can.
So Dr. Stewart, I want to celebrate both of these items, yet I also want to ask that if we're going to do this, the regionals have to be involved. They also are producing teachers, and so K-State can, I'm I know that that's part of your mission, but it's also part of the mission of 3 regionals.
And we would welcome that.
And I see KU's waving, they have a strong education. So maybe this is one that moves to a system ask and it is a collaboration across the system.
We would
Thank you
welcome
for
that.
Ms. Julie.
So if you wanted to, one thing you could do is take this 5 and with your help, the 3 could be parked in an existing initiative. The other 2 could become a system-wide ask working across all universities.
So-
We certainly would welcome that.
Thank you for that. Comments from the other CEOs?
Yeah,
This is,
go ahead, Rick.
yeah, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just gonna say, I think, we all have a ton of efforts going on in this area, and we have our, and we're doing it on the healthcare side as well with our rural health task force, or center in Salina. And I think we want to also be careful that we do it in as coordinated fashion as possible, so we're not repeating each other's efforts. And so I think that's how we do this at a system level makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'll just say, and Regent Lane, you know about this, our teacher apprentice program, which is a wildly popular program that's keeping people in rural parts of the state. It's one of our largest programs now at the university. We have over 700 students in it. I think this could also be a part of that.
All right, so we're moving to 2 million for the ask. That would be a system-wide ask, and we'll partner together, which I love when we partner together. It's a great suggestion.
And we probably should mention the 2-year,
Yeah,
the community college intended. I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that's exactly what I was going to do, Region Ice, is just make sure that this is done in concert with the community colleges as well. Because I know they operate in this space.
We would welcome that.
Yeah, so one thing that the legislature's been good about is with our community and technical colleges to prepare the teachers, we have the Promise Act. And so as long as the board will continue to advocate that that is fully funded, then students can actually do the first 2 years with a last dollar option. And then the board may want to consider, I know we're about trying to reduce, but the board may want to consider where it's 2 million moving to the system, bumping that slightly, the 2 million, to accommodate more partners.
Hey, Blake, this is, I guess I'm confused as why it's not all 5 million.
I thought the board was considering 2 million, but it could be the 5 million. If it moves to the system with all the players.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Are we talking about rural education of 5 million plus the digital ag?
I think what is being articulated is the KSU rural education, the College of Arts and Science 3 million would be routed a different way.
Okay.
The 2 million would move to 5 million, but would be inclusive of all the universities for preparation.
Okay.
We would be very supportive of that.
Are we going to give in on other areas then? Because we are adding to the budget at this point.
No, it'd be a 5 to a 5 is what they're saying. I think
The arts and
So
sciences.
the question I'd have, as we're penciling this out and bringing people together, do you put it in at 3? And if we're able to more directly show how we'd spend more, then we go advocate for more once we have better details around it. I mean, you guys know better than me.
I would be concerned about that. We walk over the legislature saying we want 3, and then we say, oh, what we really want is 5. That's probably not going to work very well. So if we think we want 5, I'd say it ought to be 5.
But are we better off putting it over in the system-wide?
We definitely want to do that.
Move it
This
there.
entire box, let's move it to system-wide and then we can work through the details. Is that agreeable?
Yes, ma'am.
President
Agreed.
Mason, I saw you grab the mic.
I was just gonna add that in terms of teacher ed, it's a really great opportunity, given how phenomenally all of our deans have been working across the system. So we're really able to step off of that platform and expand and excel.
Right.
I just want to show my support for the College of Ed ask. I'm the product of something like this, and I know there are so many students in our part of the state that don't get these opportunities. So this is huge for students in my community. So thank you.
All right, so 5 million is the number. Be system-wide ask. It aligns with one of our board goals about looking at some of the industries where we're short and partnering more with commerce too, in the sense of what we need to do. So, all right. Any further discussion on that, or Marshall, you want to finish up?
I'll finish up with one last one. Our Salina campus. Many of you know, we had a great announcement a few weeks ago, Pure Imagination, company out of California, coming in, $40 million partnership with the state. It's an incredible opportunity. And one of the things that they're really strong in is virtual reality. Some of us were privileged to go through some virtual reality with them. They actually set it up on campus, a model for us to go through where they do all kinds of training for law enforcement. And it goes to anything. There can be training for factory workers. It can be training for anything. It's an amazing set of technologies they bring. And so this money would be, again, one time to enable us to specifically begin to move into one of those areas that we know is of great interest, and one area that our dean there really believes that can be strong for us in terms of enhancing security training for law enforcement folks and working along those lines. So again, it builds on this recent investment and allows us to, again, work with this partner, Pure Imagination, on a first project as we move forward.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I got one.
Yeah, go.
So you explained all these, but you didn't change any numbers. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Regent Dicus, are you done? I couldn't tell.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Marshall. Okay. Give us a standing where we're at right now. Elaine, down at the bottom, our total.
As it stands now, for the items that I believe you have resolved or discussed or come to a tentative decision, we've come to 219.7 million total. 105 million of that is for capital improvements, like the $75 million cancer research facility.
Has to be in addition to the 290.
I'm sorry,
You said it includes the 105. I thought.
it does.
Yeah, that could be.
Okay, so let me re-explain. For the decisions that you have made, that I understand that you have made so far, you have adopted or endorsed 219 million of the 570 million. We started with 570. Now we're at 219. There are still some items I don't have an amount for because you haven't covered them yet.
I guess I would argue we're at 324 because we basically endorsed those capital projects.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest that a brief break so that Elaine can run that? Would that be helpful, Elaine? If you're shaking your head, no, that won't help you.
Those are the numbers. So
Something that we could look at.
or the items related to more like student financial aid, operating type things, 114.7 million you have tentatively approved. For capital projects, are you thinking on the Fort Hays nursing facility? You're okay with 10 million? Are you okay with 5 million for the Pittsburgh State Science Labs?
Yep.
I don't have amounts set for those yet.
I think we're passing them all through.
Okay.
And it would be really helpful, maybe it's just me, I'd like to see it in writing before to confirm what you're saying, Elaine. Because I'm such a visual person, it would help if we could take a brief break so you could rerun the run so we can look at it. Is that possible?
You want me to hit print?
Yeah, please. It's a draft.
Okay.
It's not
Oh,
done,
absolutely.
but it'd be helpful to look at it. But if I'm the only one, let's move forward.
So you've reviewed some items this morning and you didn't say yay team, but you heard about them from our CEOs. So that's your endorsement, those items. Okay. All right. That brought the amounts up. So.
And then I just want to bring up there's two other areas I just want to check while you're doing that. Moving over. One is there anybody from Washburn or Regent Dicus Are those, were you guys able to review anything or? And you got
That
81
was-
in there, it said 8.1.
Yeah,
Elaine.
that was my question. I don't know whether anybody from KBOR has talked to them. I'm not going to speak for them this morning.
I do have.
One of 9, not
Sure.
the one.
For the two capital projects that are at the bottom of the screen or the bottom of the page, the back page, they have two capital items. One is a manufacturing training center, one Institute for Healthcare Excellence. And the notes that I have, the manufacturing training center will be a state-of-the-art manufacturing center built to expand Washburn's current custom training program by increasing partnerships that supports the growth and success of the manufacturing industry in Northeast Kansas. And they have some manufacturing workforce projections for the coming 10 years. Their goal is to increase recruitment in advanced manufacturing programs and developing a model for systematic approach for partner collaboration that could be replicated at our regional technical colleges. For the Institute of Healthcare Excellence, this would be an innovative way to use existing and future resources to prepare students for careers in health professions. I believe the item here would be to renovate the old, we'll call it the old law school, if I'm thinking of this correctly, and they would consolidate all of their allied health programs into that facility, because as I understand it now, they're sort of spread all over the campuses. With a centralized location, emphasis on interprofessional collaboration and education, we'd gain efficiencies in curriculum and program management, better use of common resources, and a reconceptualization of student recruitment and advisement. We would have opportunities to expand community engagement as identified by the foundation for positioning Washburn as a premier educational institution for healthcare professions in Kansas.
With all that, if I could be excused, I've texted Julie, but I haven't received a text. Let me call her and see if there's any room for movement on these.
Okay, thank you, Regent Dicus.
Hey, Regent Rolfe, this is
Yes.
Rick
Yes, President
Newman.
Newman. Yep.
So I just want to point out, we've made a concession or told if it would work, we could cut ours in half. We have a track record of actually proving our concept here. And so I'm just saying that we've made a meaningful cut here in this one request we have, and I'm not seeing that in other areas in a significant way. I just wanted to point that out.
Yep, thank you, President Muma. I think our tally is gonna be a little higher than we thought. Make sure you catch that 81 million, Elaine, on ESU. You got an extra 0 in there. There you go.
So John, I do think we're, the group of us here is talking past each other a bit, so maybe a break would be
I'm good
really.
for a break. I got 2 more things I want to check before we go. I'm
All
good
right,
with the
thank
break.
you.
So one of them is I just want to make sure that we captured what the 2-year sector had shared with us yesterday as far as what they wanted to pass through, that was accurate. Is that showing up correct? We're
Mr.
good?
Chairman, what I show for the 2-year schools, it would be $5 million for the CTE capital outlay for the other 10 community colleges. Repeating the 14.3 million for apprenticeships and business industry partnerships, 6.5 million for the IT cybersecurity, and 10.5 million for the technical college operating grants. We did not discuss adult ed. We did for the current year, but not for the coming year. There is a request from the TEA that our adult ed center capacity be increased by $1 million above the maintenance of effort that's needed. That's $110,000. We are, I believe, at several of our adult ed centers turning students away. We're not able to serve all of those students. And I have somewhere in my email that data as to how many we're turning away.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that request. I don't know if anybody else has an issue. But did we capture the rest of them?
I believe so. We haven't really talked about, and we will later this morning, the Excel and CTE and the request for the community colleges to also participate in the NIST playbook style funding for student success.
I think they pulled all that yesterday.
Okay.
So
Just
wanna make sure.
reconfirming.
Yep.
And then And I'm sorry, the Promise Scholarship Act. The community colleges had asked for $2 million.
I think they pushed that back too. That's wrong with them in the room. I want to make sure that we're representing what they had put out there.
Nodding.
Yep.
Nodding and thumbs up. So.
Okay, great. Then the other question, just before we go to break, Chancellor Gerard, did you guys have any additional thoughts on that research initiative? Whether it should be 10 million or we should approach it a different way that we discussed yesterday?
Yeah, I think our conversation was maybe approaching this as similar to the engineering initiative, which would be through legislation as opposed to appropriations. If they legislate it, then they'll have to decide to appropriate it. But that in that case, it would not show up on this document.
So we're comfortable with the zero there. Okay, thank you. Can I just see the bottom before we go into break real quick? Can you scroll down? Thank you, Elaine. Okay, yeah, so this is a little more what I was thinking we were at. Okay. All right, Elaine, you'll have an opportunity to tighten that up. We'll hear from Regent Dykes after he talks to President Washburn, and we'll come back. So I'm gonna 10 minutes. It's 10:25. We're gonna get back in here at 10:35. All right.
Just FYI, I need to head out about 10:45. So if you see me walking quietly away, then you'll know why.
All right. Thank you. All right, we're in break. Looks like some work still being done, so I'm gonna give another 5 minutes on the break to 10:40 to 10:40. All right, guys, we getting close to being ready? Do you need, Elaine, do you need a little more time, or Blake, are we? Anybody want to speak into a microphone? Give me an idea. Went safe travels to Spain. All right, looks like we got everybody. All right, can you guys hear me?
We
Now-
can,
Now
we're
unmuted.
generally back in our seats. The Regents
Okay.
are, a few other people are still coming in.
Okay.
We are,
Before Elaine, before you go, I'm just gonna level set for everybody again, kind of going to round two, round three, I guess, of these conversations. Okay. Our overall SGF in 21 was 826 million, 22 was 877 million. In 23 was $1 billion. We 50,000 essentially, and then 1,150,000 last year. So, and our base coming into this year is back to that 1,045,046,000 mark. So I just want to keep in context of our ask. And as we're trying to whittle this down, we have got to hold ourselves accountable to these things and prioritize them against our goals on a high level. We get individual projects, but we have to make sure we're pulling it back up to that. So Regent Dicus, did you give an update on Washburn at all?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so if you turn to page 94, at the bottom of that page, begins their ask. The first one is the higher education curriculum. Department of Corrections, they are willing to remove that one this year. Turning the page on top of page 95 and the regional workforce development capital projects. These are two projects that they have that will be a part of a match. The overall projects are much larger than the numbers here. Starting with number 2, working back up, the healthcare excellence, it is not at a phase that they would need the money this year, so we could remove the $10 million. The manufacturing training center, it is one that they have had some conversations with the federal delegation, and they think there'll be some federal match that they would like to keep that one, but would be willing to take it down to $3 million. And the last item in the last box on top of page 95 for the regional aviation, they will figure out where there is other money for the 200,000. So they will remove that. So of the 16 million roughly that they had requested, they will remove all but 3 million.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then I caught up with Marshall Stewart, I was in the room during the break on K-State, and we talked about taking the Water Institute down to 5 million and the Ag Data Analytic Institute to 2 million. So if you make those adjustments, Elaine, on K-State.
Here, Rolf,
Yes.
just a quick technical, John, is Washburn okay with making that $3 million a match, one-to-one match from funds?
Let's say no at this point. I mean, it's a one-time, that's their goal, because it's that 3 million would not get the facility done, so they will need other funds. But to say contingent on a federal match, I would not want to put that
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
on there at this time as their spokesperson.
Okay. All right. So where are we at on total here? Do we believe we have the sheet right now?
I believe we do, and it is being handed around the room for the regents. So just again, for context, for the items that we have added to the list, the Board of Regents would be seeking a unified appropriations request of 301.258 million. Of that, 127.3 million is one-time non-recurring items. And we have 130 million for identified as capital. So we will keep refining these numbers and checking these numbers, but as I understand it, this is where we are right now.
So as we pull out the 75 million for cancer, that we're going to submit that would, what would that drop our number to? Just if I can do it in my head. Okay.
Sure. 226.
All right. Okay. You can put it back, but go ahead and put it back in there. I just wanted to make sure I knew kind of where we're at. Okay.
John,
Other
can I
comments
ask-
that come out of the break? Yeah. Who's going to say
Can I
something?
ask a question on that? Yeah,
Yes,
with
Richard,
David
go
and Jeff here. The chancellor had made comments earlier that you have worked with the legislatures and you think that will go. Is that something that necessarily needs to be a part of the unified budget? Or is that something that, David, you think we could get?
I do
outside
not
of that
think
on
it
the-
is sufficiently there to call it wired or call it, established and not at risk. I guess I kind of defer to you, given that fact. I would think it needs to be in here somehow.
It
would make me-
actually does.
Yeah.
Does.
And
We need to put it in there. I'm just thinking of our own thoughts here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So Went wants to say something. I want to jump on piling on that one too.
Okay.
Well, as I walk out the door, thank you for everything. I gotta say that the work we're doing on this yesterday and today is in my 2 years plus most important work we've done. This has been a tremendous sharing of information, and I appreciate the universities and everybody working to display to ourselves and the public and the legislature some real tough stewardship. This is really important stuff. So thank you, Chair and Carl, for facilitating all this.
Thank you.
I'm off to not get hurt on a bicycle.
Have fun.
Great.
So this is an unnecessary addition, but I guess I think an important one. I mean, I appreciate the way that the KU leadership, University of Kansas leadership has approached the whole cancer thing. I think when it came up at the end of the session, they communicated real well with all of us. They let us know what was going on. We're now endorsing. They're going to be talking about that. I think every time we know what everybody's doing, that's really helpful. So I'm glad they did it the way they did it. And because of that, I think it needs to be in the ask.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Thank you. I agree.
I have a comment more like a learning process, I guess. For the 2-year colleges and other institutions, when we don't fund a particular activity or we withdraw certain things, are we resulting in unknown, like suddenly the department has lost funding and
Regent Brisker, I think everything in the way the funding formula, we have many programs that run through our agency that go to the coordinated institutions. And all of the items have been addressed in some manner, I believe, other than the Promise Scholarship Act.
Right.
So there is nothing that's been omitted in that, to that extent.
Okay.
Yep.
And on the Promise Scholarship Act,
we are seeing an uptake in interest and
Right.
enrollments in that program. The statute is a little bit odd in that it caps our appropriation at $10 million, but a cap in a statute can always be negated by a proviso in an appropriations bill. So we have already $10 million appropriated for us for next year. So in that sense, the program is fully funded.
got it.
But we could be in a position next year where we would not have enough to cover all of the demand for the program. Now it's been around a couple of years and people are knowing about it a lot more, and we're seeing a lot more uptake on that program.
Okay. Are we interested in at least funding $1 million of it instead of removing completely? Because there is an interest in demand. The Promise Act, community colleges have seen an increase in requirement and demand. And I was wondering, from the explanation, looks like they will get the 10 million, but the demand is increasing in that area. So are we thinking a little bit increase instead of completely not saying no increase at all?
Yeah, I think the way we've generally handled those formulas and Promise Act isn't quite as pure a formula, but it kind of fits in that, is we wait and see what the gap is. And then we've just went over and talked about the gap. It's kind of understood that the board would be supportive of that. We don't actually have to have a number in here for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe the colleges know of a wait list.
Yeah.
The Board of Regents administers the program.
Do we have a wait list?
We do not this year.
Okay.
No. We do not this year, but we have seen an uptake in people applying and being eligible.
Yeah, and we want to promote and, utilize those funds
Mhm. And I think
appropriately.
We will fully utilize the 10 million this year. So
Okay.
yes.
As long as we've discussed, there's no, nobody turning back saying there is no funds, I think
Yes.
we're good. Okay.
Regent Rolfe.
Yes, Alicia.
I
All the
first
way
I
from
just wanted
Alaska.
all the way from Alaska. It's really dreary up here too. It's beautiful the other day. But thank you for all the hard work that's been done on this. I know it really is time consuming. It takes tons and tons of resources to put this together. And I apologize if I didn't hear some of this, but I was wondering if it would be helpful when we present or when K-Board presents over the street to organize the budget in a way that aligns with the 3 pillars. And that way, I think that possibly when other people look at it that may not be as familiar about the background of why we're asking for some of these things, if we can say, this is the part that helps Kansas families, this is the part that supports Kansas businesses, and this is the part that advances economic prosperity. And maybe it's already done that way, but if I was looking at it as a layperson, it would make a lot more sense, and I might be a bit more willing to support it if it is presented in that manner, or at least organized some way like that, even though I know
Yeah.
it's a lot more work for you, Elaine.
Yes.
Well, that actually, that is exactly how we always present it.
Yeah.
actually.
Okay, well, thank you. I apologize then.
Yeah,
No, that's okay.
it's an important point, Alicia, and a lot of people actually have brought it up over the last 24 hours. And the team, the K-Board team has done an excellent job organizing it against our pillars, and in a way, as far as the first person that consumes it is the governor's office and budget office, that they've complimented the last 2 years, that they've appreciated how we've done it in a way that helps tell the story and makes sense against our core values. So the team will reorganize it. The what you're seeing is kind of an approach where we can look at the system individual and organize it in that fashion for ourselves. So
Well, thank you. There never was an original idea that I had, so.
yeah,
I'm
you're
glad
great.
we're
It's an
doing
important
that.
point. It's an important point. You're not the only
Thank
one that's
you.
brought that up. So it's good to clear the air on that. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you making the effort to be here. Okay, so Elaine, let me ask if Regents have anything else that they want to point out, or how we're feeling about where we've landed on the number. If we think it's still too high, we need to cut more. What's the feeling there in the room among the Regents?
Chair Rolfe, this is Regent Lane. I'd like to bounce a question to the regional CEOs, please, and have them reflect on what really advances the work that you're trying to do, and is there something that we've missed in your review of this?
No, I just like to thank everyone for the conversation right around this. As you know, I made the point yesterday. And Elaine, I was just gonna, on the spreadsheet where we've gone to the new regional university, the regional university stabilization, that what we suggested was that instead of 18 in 1 year, it becomes $9 million this year and then the next year. So it's kind of a phased approach to this.
Yeah.
Want to just make sure that that's what we would be agreeing to and committing, because I think that's some of the most important, again, for Pitt State, work that we're going to do is to help us advance economic outcomes in our region. There's a little gasoline that's needed to do this, and we certainly have a lot of plans to begin that work right away. So would hate to give any of that positive back to the progress we're making here. So just thank you, because I think that's really important.
I want to take us back to the Wichita State University initial request. I know oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just gonna really echo my colleagues' words. I'm really thankful also for the teaching initiative that just got lifted up to the system wide, and we're very thoughtful in putting a lot of these proposals together and talked ahead to our legislators as well. So we're feeling pretty good where we are right now.
The same as Dan and Tiza. Thanks for everyone's cooperation. It's just a side comment, is that overlaying the enrollment expectation that K-Board has put forth on a go-forward basis and the difficulties and pressures down. We just need to keep in mind there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of research-based funding here, but at the same time, there's a lot of strike zones that each of us share not just the 6 of us, but I'm probably, speaking for the other universities in the whole state system. So I think we need to keep a bigger picture of competition, head-on-head competition, what that looks like, what it means, whether these funding dollars are going to help the overall system and achieve that growth. So thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I know that Regent Prasker has a question. I just wanted to add my thanks to the regional institutions. In my time on the board, I've always been impressed when our institutions are proactive and collaborating with each other, whether that's KU and Wichita State, K-State and Fort Hays. This is something you all put together yourselves. You were proactive in doing it. I think our state would like to see even more of this in the future. So I really applaud the regional effort that you've put together.
And the conversation started early, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was also helpful.
And again, Mr. Chair, Regent Prasker has a question.
I wanted to go back to the Wichita State University request of initial request of 10 million for supporting the students. Affordability, and we've been having conversations regarding how we can increase the number of registered students across the state. So we went from supporting close to 3,000 students, or exact number I was given is 2,850 students, to about 1,500. Is there a way that we can think about bringing that back on the table? And looking at providing those funds and resources so that the students are better served.
Well, let me ask a question, because I'm confused about this and have some concern where, I'm a huge fan of the applied learning model that you have at Wichita State, President Muma. It seems different to me that we're now asking the state to pay wages for someone to work for a private entity. Am I hearing that is what we're asking for here?
So currently, as you know, we have close to 50 businesses on our campus, and our students are working with them. It's required that happens. And so when we set the innovation campus up, that was part of the requirement. And there's about 8,000 students earning about $28 million with them. We also have a lot of other businesses, smaller businesses that we work with on our campus, not necessarily directly on the innovation campus, that don't have the resources to do that, but need to help advance their work and help build a talent pipeline. So our thinking is, can we leverage some of our resources that we have with state resources to help businesses grow, to help our students with affordability? So that's the thinking. Just so you know, Regent Rolfe, is that all these students are hired by Wichita State, and then we place them in those particular areas. So we're providing training for them, all kinds of other employment support for them, and it's helping the students apply their skills, help these companies, and I think everybody understands that it's been successful. And then most importantly, it's centered around affordability, and these students are getting extra wages. But the thing is, in order to scale it into the small businesses, into our community, it's going to take a little bit more investment.
Okay. I appreciate Regent Nalima's comments. Does anybody else have comments? I probably would not take it back up to 10 million myself, but where are you guys at?
Is that, if the businesses are going to benefit, is there a way to create some kind of match in that process?
Well, we would probably say that we're already doing that, but yeah, absolutely. If that helps, we could throw that in there. I guess my biggest concern is, Regent Rolfe, is that we have a proof of concept. It's working. We have data to suggest it's working, and we're growing because of it. Shouldn't we be investing in those kinds of things that we know of? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't invest in these other things, but I think we should be investing in things that we already know that's working and that we can scale.
I would be very supportive of returning it to 10 with the one-to-one match cited. It's an important concept for students, particularly underserved students. So that would be my recommendation.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm hearing 3. Regent Mendoza, Ice, Dykus, where you guys at? Regent Johnston.
I would agree as well.
I'm good with that concept.
All right, I'm on an island.
Well, my
I-
original thought was the 5 could be like 10 because we got a match, but it sounds like that's a minority opinion too. So
Regent Johnston, you want to weigh in?
Well, I agree with the match. I mean, some of this I think is duplicative in some ways, kind of like the workforce aid grants that you see with the Department of Commerce that work on this way. But I am very supportive and agree with President Muma that this is a model that looks like we need to invest in to see if it's going to work.
And I'm going to say it again. I think it's a great model. I'm a huge fan of it. And I think it's a national leader in the way you guys are doing it. And it's hugely successful. I just don't know how you decide which businesses get free employees and which ones don't. You know, like I just see a lot of hair when taxpayers start paying for the employees to be in these businesses. But I may be the only one with that concern. And if I am, that's okay. That's why we're a body and a group.
I think that is legitimate, very legitimate.
Well, we don't turn anybody away. All of our students are required to do applied learning experience. So theoretically, all of them would benefit from this in any of the businesses or industry that they work with.
But President Muma, you do not pay any business. I know you take care of all the back end, training and managing those employees, but you're not paying anybody's wages right now, right?
Well, they're all running through our payroll system. So yeah, indirectly we are with, there's small amount, but there's indirect costs that go in supporting students on our campus. So I guess my point is that in order to scale this much more fully, we're going to need a little bit of support on our end to do this.
And have you guys thought out how you decide if you have multiple, small business, how small do you have to be able to qualify?
We haven't defined that at this point, but Regent Rolfe, we will, our goal is to get to where all of our students have a paid applied learning experience. They all have to have one. We're trying to get to the point where they get some support for doing that kind of work with whoever. So, that it's I don't define it and we don't define it. It's defined in their academic program.
So the companies put no money into this other than they're located there on campus unless we get the match.
So currently companies, in order for them to be on our campus, they have to agree to hire our students to work in their businesses. And then they pay them a wage. We provide all the back end support, the training, what they need to get there. And we have our office, Shocker Career Accelerator office that provides all of that. It's real costs to us, but they're paying their wages.
But this expansion, would you have companies that do not? I think is what the issue is.
Do not or don't have the resources to do that, but would really like to have the opportunity to help build their pipeline through our program of applied learning.
So John Blake needs to say something.
Yeah, President Flanders.
Yes, so at this point, it was 20 minutes ago. I was contacted by the Secretary of Administration. We need to vacate the building within 30 minutes because they are vacating this building. So we've got maybe we can stretch it 10 or 15 minutes. They've had a water line break and they've moved everyone out. And he said, as long as we could complete our work in a half hour, that would be fine. That's been a number of minutes ago. And so I know we have some items that we need to cover. I just wanted to let people know.
All right, thank you. My toilets are working fine here, so I can go as long as you guys want. Yeah. All right, let's get consensus. You know, I'm gonna say it again, if I'm on an island, my preference would be to go, that the businesses have to put something in, and we leg into what feels like new territory to me, with 5 million, and see how it goes and how disruptive it is in the marketplace.
Yeah, Rolf, I'm good with that. This intention is to go towards students' applied learning and to support businesses to invest in our universities better, to get cheaper labor, but at the same time, it should be a win-win situation. If we need to form guidelines or test it out even further, I'm good with going back to 5 million with one-on-one match. But the intention is to support student and industry learning together. That's the concept we would like to support.
And that is the concept currently.
And I agree, it's extremely successful.
I think we need to be cautious about describing this as cheaper labor for business. That's not what it's about. President Muma, the small businesses that you're thinking about acquiring, how do they have, what obligation, and maybe you already said that, I need to hear it again, do they have? Because I'm thinking the one-on-one match says they have to have skin in the game financially as well. Is that correct, or what am I missing?
Well, if you're, currently the businesses that we're working with on our campus are paying all these wages. And we have lots of other businesses that either support smaller businesses that support those businesses that they're not able to do that or are not doing that. And we do have some that are. I think it is a reasonable approach to require those individuals, businesses that are off campus, they're not part of the innovation campus, and set up under that particular agreement to have some skin in the game. I'm not opposed to that at all.
And are you seeing NIR Works benefiting from this?
No, NIR Works is a whole different ball of wax.
Okay. All right. So where's the room? Are we comfortable with 5 million with the understanding that businesses that are not a part of the innovation campus would need to be contributing something?
Yes.
So where we're at?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get Elaine's spreadsheet back up.
If I may,
Yes,
Mr.
Regional
Chair, one other for consideration. We've spent a lot of investment ensuring that our student success strategies are in place. The community colleges want to be part of that work. They backed off that request. I'm wondering if we could at least get some startup funding. No, it's another ad, but I just asked the board, let's talk a minute about in how do we invite the community colleges to begin that work? And is there some level of funding that would assist there?
You know, I'll just say for me, Regent Lane, I'm very supportive of this work, but until we have a well thought out plan, I don't like going across the street asking for money. So if there's not a thought on what that $1 million exactly would go to, I'd probably leave it off myself. But happy to hear from anybody else in the room.
I'm aligned with you, John.
All right, nobody else brings
Same.
it, then at least I broached the conversation, and maybe we can talk with the community colleges about developing that plan. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we can pull out some of the best practices, and then they had one, and then we can start to see what we'd be standing up at all the 2 years, and in coordination and group with them. All right.
Chair Rolf.
Yep.
Sorry, I know we're short time. I do want to support Regent Lane and the community colleges on that. And I think it is something that we need to look to in the future. This aligns with what we're doing in terms of academic affairs and making sure that we make sure all students have the opportunity at least to be successful. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday in academic affairs, but NIST does have a nice platform, but it's costly. And so if we want these schools to participate and use that type of thing, then we've got to be able to give them the resources to do so, because otherwise these platforms, these types of resources, they are costly. And before the community colleges are going to be able to implement this stuff, we're going to have to be able to support it with our funding.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anything else on that item?
I have one thing, Chair Rolfe, this is
Yep.
Dan. You know, it might be possible too, I'm just thinking that many of us are a year down the road on playbook implementation. That in lieu of the dollar, some of it is having a community of practice around these issues. And so I think I'm very willing to do this on behalf of Pitt State, but within our orbit of community colleges, in convening those individuals to come to campus, or we can go to their campus to begin to walk through some of those best practices that quite honestly don't cost much. But if they are being implemented, will make it an overall better fit for students that are not only at the community college, but are looking to transfer to the 4 years. So I'm willing kind of off this topic, but to not just wait for another year, but to lean into that with our community college partners. At least I think many of us would. So yeah.
Awesome. That's a great suggestion.
A great suggestion. I agree. Thank you, President Ship. Okay, I'm looking over this sheet. I'm really liking where we ended up. I don't think we have time, and nor do I think we need to actually go back through each item individually, but you guys all have it in front of you. It seems aligned with our mission and our values and our strategic plan as I look at it. It seems much more reasonable as far as the investment we'd be asking the state to move forward and the return we think they'd get. It feels more disciplined to me also. Is there anything on here that we need to discuss or revisit before we vote to approve it? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
There's head shaking, more or less. So I
right.
think our comments are fulfilled.
All right.
I guess I have a question based on a comment Chancellor Girard made last night. Is this too long a list? What's our chance of getting any of this if it's 2 pages?
I'll say this, Regent Dicus, we talked about there's different hurdles along this way. The first hurdle we're going over today, which is our board. The second hurdle is the governor and her budget, what she wants to invest in as part of her priorities for the state. And then there's the legislature in that session. And so part of what we've decided to do is, in respect for the governor and her work, is make sure she's seen everything that we might be lobbying for the year, even if she doesn't include it in her budget. And so this is actually pretty similar to how we approached it last year, where I think when you look at the system-wide ask and the 2-year ask, it's pretty simple to follow along. When you get to the individual campuses, having it a part of here and their individual projects allows them to continue to move forward through the legislative session with our blessing on the project. And so to me, it feels right, but I'm also happy to entertain that from any of the fellow regents. It's a fair question.
Just trying to make your job and Carl's easier.
Gosh, when he puts it like that, how can you turn him down, right? John, I agree with you. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Chair Rolfe, I agree with. I agree with every John I know. Chair Rolfe, I agree with you.
Anybody else when you look at this thing? Questions or comments?
Of course, I have one, Mr. Chair. This is Lane. I just would like to have President Flanders talk a little bit about the KBOR ad for staff for strategic planning. I think I missed that. Would you just describe it briefly, what we're doing there?
So with our request, I believe we have someone in there. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe we have someone in there to enhance our communications. This board's become much more active in terms of doing that. And then we also will need support with scholarship programs and that kind of thing.
All right.
You ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
I think so. I was just looking it over one more time myself.
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Blake Benson. If there are no further questions, I would recommend approval of the proposed budget.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved by our Chair of Fiscal Affairs and seconded by Regent Dykus. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, let me do a couple things. Let me thank staff, Elaine in particular, for keeping the running tally going. I appreciate everybody willing to get serious about tightening this up and our priorities. I do think conversations like this are helpful for us over the long haul too, as we talk about what our opportunities are, what our priorities are, and where we want to go. These build positively on each other when we can do it with the kind of spirit we did this today. So thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Kelly, everybody who was involved in keeping that going. And I also just want to thank ahead of time the great staff for how you will organize this against our priorities in a way that is consistent with how the governor has liked receiving this the last 2 years. So we appreciate your team and all the work that's going to happen over the next week on that. Blake, I'd like to turn the floor over to you. You can tell us what we can expect on the rest of our agenda. For the rest of our agenda is going to be waiting until a special meeting or November, or what we need to do next as it relates to the water main issue.
So the two items that I think you should consider quickly are the capital project item and also the conflict of interest disclosures.
Okay.
If the board could consider those, that I think the rest of them could wait.
Okay. Let's start with conflict of interest. If John Urie's ready. We have reviewed this as he comes up. We reviewed this in governance. And it's pretty consistent with what we've seen before. Everybody does a good job going, making sure we know everything they're involved in. So, John, quickly, can you give us a recap of that? I need you to turn on your mic too, if you can.
Yes, board policy requires each region annually complete a conflict form. That was done. Your materials, agenda materials at pages 107 and 108 list what's been reported for this year. And additionally, Regent ICE requested that his membership on the Board of Trustees for the K-State Foundation and the K-State Foundation Board be noted. In accordance with board policy, the board is to include the reported interest in its minutes, make a determination regarding each reported membership or affiliation as to the permissibility of continuing to serve in that capacity, and provide direction to each regent reporting an interest in a contract or transaction as to participation in board actions involving that contract or transaction. The governance committee, as noted, reviewed these yesterday and concurred with the staff recommendation to approve continued service of the 5 regions on the identified boards, which include the Washburn Board of Regents, which is a statutory responsibility, the University Foundation and endowment boards and committees, all of which are beneficial to the board's work, and the boards of entities whose missions complement the work of the board. The governance committee forwards these recommendations with the understanding that continued service on these boards be conditioned on each regent's recognition that their duty is first and foremost to the Kansas Board of Regents, and that if any actual conflict does arise, that they will take appropriate action to manage or remedy that conflict. The committee also recommended directing the 5 regents with potential transactional conflicts to excuse themselves from participating as a regent in any matter that directly involving those transactions that might come before the board.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions for John Urie, Esquire? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve as recommended?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Regent Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Regent Mendoza, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, that's good. If you guys ever think you're getting on the edge of what's appropriate or not appropriate, just, it's always better to take the high road and excuse yourselves or discuss it, but we're trusting you guys to keep an eye on that for us. And we know you're all top people of integrity. All right. Chad Bristow, come on up and we'll look at this.
All right, thank you, Chair Rolfe. I'll be very brief here. Fiscal affairs, item number 2, discussion item number 2 on page 98. It's a recommendation for the board to consider amending the facilities policy. And this is to update the delegated authority approval cost threshold for capital projects. This is to be complementary to the law that was enacted this past July that increased the cost threshold for state of Kansas large capital projects to 1.5 million in estimated construction costs. These thresholds have been updated over the years since the 80s to adjust to market conditions and construction inflation. Last increase was 2015. So the proposed changes are all outlined on 99 through 102. But I'll direct your attention to the diagram on the top of page 100, and you can see at a glance what the substantive changes are. So the new recommended cost thresholds for the delegated approval authority for small and large capital projects would be as follows. Authority to approve small capital projects less than 500,000 in construction costs would be delegated to the State University Chief Executive Officer. Authority to approve small capital projects that are equal or exceed 500,000 but are less than 1.5 million in construction cost would require the approval of the university CEO or their delegate, as well as approval from the board president and CEO upon recommendation of the KBOR facilities director. And then for large capital projects, which by statute are 1.5 million and over in construction costs, the authority to approve those would remain the responsibility of the full board by way of the 5-year capital plan and the mid-cycle amendments.
Thank you. And you guys reviewed this in fiscal? Are you, did I jump the gun while you're turning your page or are you finished?
No, that's it, Chair Rolfe,
Okay.
on that one.
All right. This was reviewed in fiscal affairs, right? And
Yes.
approved by that group. Any questions for Chad? I can't see the board, so I don't know if there are any. Okay, there we go.
No questions.
No questions. Okay. Do I hear a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, move second. Any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you, Chad. Appreciate that. We also need, and I think we're just gonna do on that, do we need to do capital improvement plan also? I'm in that, Blake.
Or
We need,
the Emporia State University project. If we
yes, we need the.
Yep, let's
got
do
it.
it. Okay, let's do
Okay.
it. Go ahead, Chad, keep the podium.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The next item is a request from Emporia State University. It's begins on page 103. And this is a request to amend their fiscal year 2024 capital improvement plan and approve the program statement to expand the project scope of the East Campus Chiller Plant Expansion Project. And this was previously approved by the board on the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan at an estimated cost of 3.25 million. And they are requesting now to include an additional 10.2 million of building system renewal, deferred maintenance, and energy conservation measures. The revised project would now be called the East Chiller Project and other deferred maintenance measures, and the estimated total project cost would be $13.36 million. ESU is also requesting to enter into a contract with an energy services company, or ESCO, which would be contingent on first receiving the approval of the project plan from the Kansas Corporation Commission as required by statute. And the last component of Emporia State's request today is to seek the board's approval for legislative bonding authority for financing the additional costs for this expanded scope of the project.
And this would also have been reviewed in fiscal affairs,
That's correct.
and you guys approved of that.
Correct.
Any questions for Chad? It looks like we have someone from Emporia State. Bill is on to answer questions also. Any questions or comments? Again, I can't see the board table, so.
There appear to be none, Mr. Chairman, so I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Benson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, move second. Any further discussion? The East Chiller Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate your brevity. Good job getting that through. Glad our committees have done their work on all of this. Okay, we need to also get Elaine back up. We need to make sure we act on the distribution of the Excel CTE initiative. So Elaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, is separate from your agenda materials, you have an issue paper with three tables requesting your approval of distributions for the technical and community colleges for Excel and CTE, Accelerating Opportunity Kansas, AOK, and our GED Accelerator Program. The amounts are based on academic year 2023 enrollments, which were just finalized on September 8th, which is why you don't have this in your material. Our staff have gone through the enrollments for eligible students and calculated the amounts in accordance with the statute. So we are seeking your approval. The last table is just an update for you to give you a context for how our unduplicated headcount and our student credit hours grew or didn't grow in AY 23 over AY 2022.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Elaine?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
All right, I'm gonna move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Moving to approve. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, Blake, what I'm showing that we have left, that we'll have to tackle a different time, is the report from community colleges and tech colleges. I'm sorry to President Ruda and President Janant that you stuck around and we weren't able to do that. Keith Humphrey, TEA Chair, and Scott Smathers, the Post-Secondary Technical Ed Authority, the FAFSA Awards. We'll need to either find a time for those or move them to November meeting. Do you have a recommendation, Blake? And do you guys
I
mind?
think we'd move them to the November meeting.
Okay. We'll move all those to the November meeting. And as far as our executive session goes, is that something we're gonna try and do somewhere else or do a special meeting?
I think we could do a special meeting for that,
Okay, so it sounds like we are done for the day. Is that right?
except for the lunches that people have in B that they can take.
Okay, so
All right.
I would like 10 seconds, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you can have
just-
15.
I think the board shares this, but personally, we really appreciate your leadership. Especially persevering through Zooming and difficult personal circumstances. So, thank you for all that. You did a wonderful job. Our thoughts will continue to be with you. We love you, man.
Thank you very much, Regent Ice.
All the best next week.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. It's a joy to work with you and work alongside you. So I'm proud of the work that we did the last 2 days. And it reminds us that we're part of a great team on this. And so thank you all very much. And we'll call the meeting adjourned.